The waves here don't crash, they detonate. Behind me is a 20-meter wall of volcanic rock, the only way onto Christmas Island from this side. And the ocean is trying to close that gap while I climb it. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no way to call for help if this goes wrong. I make it over. And on the other side is something stranger than the wall I just crossed, because on this island, 1,700 people don't make the rules. 50 million crabs do. A crab the size of a house cat, hauling itself up a tree trunk like it owns the forest, because it does. A red crab army pouring across a driveway so thick the asphalt disappears underneath them. A kid covering his head walking into a bathroom because baby crabs fall out of the vents. A school bus stopped dead, doors open because the road ahead isn't a road anymore. It's a crab. This is a normal Tuesday on Christmas Island. Not a festival, not a one-off event crews built a set for. Tuesday. So how does anywhere actually function like this? I'm about to find out, and what happens when the crabs and the humans collide is something I did not see coming. Quick question while we're here. Would you last a week on an island with no taxis, no trains, and 50 million crabs deciding when you leave your house? Drop your answer below. I want to know before this gets worse. Meet Chris Carr. For years, he was the only taxi driver on the entire island. One man, one car, the sole link between 1,700 people and anywhere they needed to go. Then, in 2019, the mainland government made a decision that had nothing to do with crabs at all. Every taxi in Australian territory now needed a security camera installed. Standard procedure, standard crime prevention. Except Christmas Island barely has crime. People don't lock their front doors. Car keys stay in the ignition overnight. A surveillance camera wasn't protecting anyone from anything. It was solving a problem that didn't exist here. Chris looked at the cost, looked at the pointlessness of it, and made his choice. He parked the car. He retired. Just like that, the last taxi service in Christmas Island's history disappeared. Not because of danger, not because of crabs, but because of a rule built for a world this island never belonged to. Since then, if you want to get anywhere, drive yourself. There's no rideshare app quietly waiting to fill the gap, no bus company eyeing an opportunity. On an island this small, once a service disappears, nobody bothers rebuilding it. The math just doesn't work for 1,700 people. There are no traffic lights here, no trains, no buses that reliably run. The crabs made that job impossible too. Cell towers exist. Coverage doesn't reach half the island. And when migration hits its peak, entire roads simply cease to exist for days. Not damaged, not weathered out, closed on purpose, because tens of millions of crabs are crossing, and nothing here outranks that. Try planning a hospital run, a school pickup, a delivery, around a closure schedule nobody controls, and nature resets every year. A modern country, a modern century, and humans still come second. I needed to see how that was even possible. Here's why. Christmas Island sits almost completely alone. Java is 350 kilometers one way. Mainland Australia, over 1,500 kilometers the other. For millions of years, nothing new arrived here. No predators, no competition. Just an island running its own experiment in evolution. Around 63% of the land animals here exist nowhere else on Earth. 1/4 of the plant life is found only on this island. And without predators, one species didn't just survive. It multiplied out of control. Red crabs, tens of millions of them, until they weren't just present. They were the majority. Then, in 1958, humans claimed the island as Australian territory. Roads and houses dropped directly onto a landscape that had belonged to something else for millions of years. Nobody asked the crabs to move. So every year, when the rains come and the migration begins, those tens of millions of crabs don't reroute around the human world. The human world reroutes around them. That's not a metaphor. That's an actual physical fact of daily life here. And it's about to get a lot stranger. And it isn't only the crabs whose numbers are worth watching. Something else on this island is quietly shifting too, but that comes later. That crab you saw climbing a tree in the opening seconds, that's the coconut crab, the largest land crab on Earth. Legs spanning nearly a meter, weighing up to 4 kilograms. Locals call them robber crabs, and the nickname isn't for show. Shiny objects, tools, shoes left outside overnight. If it catches their attention, it disappears. Some live more than 50 years, patrolling the same patch of forest for half a century. But robber crabs are just one tier of a hidden hierarchy. Below them, endemic blue crabs hide in the streams, found nowhere else on the planet. Above all of them, in raw numbers, the 50 million red crabs everyone actually came here to see. 3 species, 3 roles, one 135 square kilometer island. The forest floor here isn't just crowded, it's stacked. With 50 million crabs here, there's an obvious question. Do people eat them? No. And the reason isn't what you'd expect. Early settlers did eat coconut crab meat, but red crabs never make it to a dinner plate. Locals will tell you straight, the taste isn't worth it. So instead of a food source, the crabs became something else, an infestation nobody's allowed to stop. During migration, they crawl into kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms, while people are asleep in them. That's why residents cover their heads, walking into the bathroom. That's why some sleep wrapped in blankets, worried something might crawl into their ear overnight. Residents could try to wipe them out. Nobody does. These crabs are the reason the forest floor functions at all. Tearing through fallen leaves, cycling nutrients back into the soil. So the island keeps them, even in the bedrooms, even in the fans. So go back to the question from the start. How do you live somewhere nature refuses to share power with you? You've seen it now. Crabs in beds, crabs falling from vents, a species too important to remove, no matter the cost. But surviving crabs in your kitchen is one thing. The real test happens on the roads. Picture the scale, tens of millions of crabs, leaving the forest in the same window, all crossing roads that cars and school buses depend on. Most places would try to control that. Christmas Island redesigned itself around it. About a month before the rains, crews install barriers, not to stop the crabs, but to guide them toward tunnels built underneath the roadway and overpasses built for one purpose, letting a crab cross above the traffic instead of through it. Where vehicles still need to pass, residents and volunteers walk out with brooms and rakes, lifting crabs off the road by hand, one at a time. School buses stop early during peak migration and let kids walk the rest of the way, because in some places, the road is genuinely no longer drivable. This isn't a once-a-year inconvenience, it's infrastructure, tunnels, overpasses, barriers rebuilt every season. An engineering system built by 1,700 people for a species that will never say thank you. That's the answer, not fighting the crabs, building around them. Migration season is only a few weeks a year. The rest of the time, Christmas Island moves at a completely different pace. Trade winds turn the island into a natural air conditioner, 22 to 28 degrees year-round. The population is small enough that everyone genuinely knows everyone. Chinese, Malay, and European families have lived side by side for generations, woven into the same streets and workplaces. You can start your morning with a Malay roti and an Australian flat white at the same table. And by evening, an Italian chicken parmigiana might sit a few feet from curry-marinated seafood at a seaside pub. At Rumatingi, a historic house on the cliffs, chefs take whatever's growing wild across the island and turn it into refined small plates and cocktails, while the Indian Ocean stretches out behind them, uninterrupted all the way to the horizon. Locals gather here on weekends, the way people back home gather at a neighborhood bar. Same faces, same booths, different sunset every time. It's easy to forget sitting there that this same island shuts itself down for crabs a few weeks a year. Out here, it just feels like paradise moving in slow motion. Isolation should have been Christmas Island's biggest weakness. Instead, it built the island's economy. For over a century, this remote rock has been sitting on a fortune buried in ancient forest soil, made from bird droppings, millions of seabirds, millions of years, rainwater reacting with limestone, slowly calcifying into some of the purest phosphate ore on the planet. Today, excavators tear through that ground daily, loading ships with more than 500,000 tons of ore a year, over $125 million annually. For 1,700 people, that single resource funds more than half the island's jobs. A place too remote to matter turned its remoteness into the very thing that made it valuable. So here's the answer to what actually happens when the crabs and the humans collide. The humans are losing, slowly, quietly, on purpose. Every year, the crab population barely changes, 50 million, holding steady, doing what it's done for millions of years. But the human number, 1,700, isn't holding steady. It's shrinking. At 15, every child born here has to leave. There's no high school past that point. They're shipped to the mainland to finish their education, thousands of kilometers from home. And a lot of them just stay gone. Better jobs, bigger cities, a version of life this island can't offer. In a community this small, losing one family feels like losing actual relatives. And it keeps happening quietly, every graduation season, without a single headline anywhere. So while the crabs keep multiplying at the exact same rhythm they always have, The humans are the ones disappearing, one 15-year-old at a time. The island isn't being taken over by the crabs, it's being handed to them. But before that number gets any smaller, this island still knows exactly who it is. Christmas Island is the only place under Australian sovereignty where Lunar New Year is an official public holiday. Firecrackers and lion dance drums echo through the hills, and a few weeks later, tropical Santas cruise the streets on red postal motorcycles, handing out sweets for what locals call the Rock Riders Lolly Run. And there's Orphans Christmas every year, right on the sand at Flying Fish Cove. A Christmas lunch for anyone with nowhere else to go. Scientists stationed alone, workers thousands of kilometers from family, travelers passing through with no one nearby, strangers sharing dishes from countries they've never met each other's, because on this island, being far from home isn't a reason to spend the holiday alone. A place named after Christmas, almost by accident, in 1643, that isn't even majority Christian, and somehow throws one of the warmest versions of it you'll ever see. But it's not all lion dances and lolly runs. In 2025 alone, volunteers pulled 2.8 tons of plastic waste off Greta Beach, a nesting ground for endangered green sea turtles. Over 98% of it didn't come from the island's residents. It drifted in from industrialized countries thousands of kilometers away, and it's now suffocating hatchling crabs and blocking turtles from even reaching the sand. Add a phosphate industry slowly running dry, and a population that keeps losing its kids to the mainland. And Christmas Island is fighting battles it never caused and can't fully control. None of it makes the postcard. All of it is just as real as the crabs. I stood at that rock wall at the start of this trip, wondering how anyone could actually live here. Now I know, they don't just live here, they live around something bigger than themselves, a species that outnumbers them 30,000 to 1. And they never once tried to fight that math. They built tunnels for it. They rerouted school buses for it. They gave up their front door locks, their taxis, even their kids, to keep this rock spinning the way it always has. The waves are still detonating against that wall behind me. The crabs are still down there, moving to a rhythm nobody controls, and 1,700 people are still choosing every single year to share their island with something they'll never fully understand, that will never once say thank you, and that will still be here long after every one of them is gone. If this place pulled you in the way it pulled me in, subscribe. There's a lot more of this world left to show you.